Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm talking about 3 ways narcissistic parents differ from whole, healthy parents. Not that this is an all-inclusive list, but we're talking about 3 specific things that they do and how it affects you when you become an adult. And then last but not least, at the end of the video, I'll give you some tips if you find that this resonates and you're like, yes, this is what's happening in my life. Make sure you watch to the end so that you can get those tips that help. So that being said, let's dive in. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a life and relationship coach. I'm also the founder of the Thriver School of Transformation, which is a monthly membership where we meet every week live on Zoom and we work through the side effects of childhood trauma, cptsd, and narcissistic abuse together. So I'll leave the link there for you to check it out. So the first way that narcissistic parents differ from whole mature parents is the fact that a mature parent is going to sacrifice their needs and their wants for the good of their child. If their child is crying at night and they're tired, they're not going to get mad at that infant. They're going to know that that child needs them and that that's normal for their child to depend on them and to need them. And they're going to meet that need with love. Yes, tired, but they're still going to meet that need with love and compassion. A narcissistic parent views any dependency on that their child has, any need that their child has that the narcissist is supposed to fill, as a burden. And they wind up shaming or getting angry at the child for having a normal need. Anytime the narcissistic parent has to stop thinking about themselves to do for someone else, in their head, it's like, I have to do for you. That means I'm here and you're here. Now, this doesn't make sense why a parent would think like that. Normal, healthy, whole parents don't think like that, but narcissistic parents do. They think that if I'm doing for my child, that means I'm putting them up there and I don't like that. So they shame their children to the point that a child will learn to stifle their needs, stifle their emotions, stifle their wants, and just put it down and revolve around the narcissistic parent. And the way this shows up in adulthood is that you wind up having that as like the template through which you live life. And so you're always sacrificing your needs. You're always putting other people's needs ahead of your own. You're doing everything to make everyone else happy except yourself. And so what could happen is that you wind up either with a narcissist, right, who expects you to revolve around them, and then that feels familiar until you heal. That can happen, or you wind up in relationships where you're always giving and giving, and you might struggle with resentment because you're not getting anything back. It's also probably really hard for you to be assertive and to stand up for yourself and to have boundaries because of this same situation. The second way that whole parents are different is in how they provoke and handle shame in their children. So shame can be a very good quality, right? Or a good emotion to have in certain situations because it can keep a child safe. So, for example, the whole parent, let's say a child is going near the stove. The parent is going to be like, oh, honey, please, dear, please be careful. No, if they're close to that fire, the parent's going to be like, hey, and they're going to say something that's going to shock the child for a moment. They're going to feel that shame. And that's normal. Like that happens. Where whole parents and narcissistic parents differ is the motive and how they handle it. So the motive of doing that to that child is to snap them into alertness. And then the way they handle it, a whole parent is not going to let their child sit and bask in that shame. They're going to explain to the child, they're going to console, they're going to emotionally support that child. They're going to explain, hey, I did that because mommy doesn't want you to get hurt. You're close to the fire and I care about you and I love you and I want to make sure that you're safe. So now that shock of shame has been processed and understood in a way that the next time that child is around a stove, that shame might come up, that emotion, right? And that's the purpose of it, to wake the child up. But it's going to come up in a way that it's supposed to, like, oh, I have to be careful over there. It's for my good. Now, a narcissistic parent will cause a child to feel shame, not just in moments to keep them safe, but because they disown their own shame. A narcissist never learned how to handle their emotions. And so rather than look at their emotions, rather than look at the things they don't like about themselves, they disown it and they project it onto their family members. And so if they're feeling shame and the child is happy, especially when the child is happy, it makes them more aware of their disowned shame. They do and say something so that now the child feels shame. And then they let that child sit in it and marinate in it. They don't explain, they don't console, they don't emotionally support that child. So what happens in your adult life is, because you are carrying, first of all, you're carrying shame that's not even yours. So it's almost like you live life through the template of shame. Shame is, I'm bad, I'm defective, there's something wrong with me, I'm unworthy, I'm less than. And so those beliefs will show up in your life. They'll show up in the decisions you make. They'll show up in the people you surround yourself with. They'll show up in the goals that you wish for, but never strive after because you don't think you're good enough to achieve. Another thing that you'll see in adulthood, if you had a parent that did this to you, is because you never had somebody emotionally support you when you were feeling an intense emotion like shame, rejection, or sadness, you never learned how to emotionally support yourself. And so you probably abandon yourself. When you're feeling shame, you probably either get really busy and try to do something and stay as busy as you can and distracted as you can so you don't have to see it. Or you might have addictions. The second it comes in your body and you feel it, you may not even know exactly what it is, but you know it's this feeling that comes on that doesn't feel good in the body. And maybe you grab a drink, or maybe you veg on TV, or you go shopping, or you overeat. You do something that's trying to keep that shame at bay. So you never learn how to emotionally support yourself, which means that the shame stays stuck in your body. Because if we can't emotionally support ourselves, we can't process the emotion. We can't allow it to come up, process it, and so that it can keep going. So it just comes up and it keeps bobbing in the body, and it keeps affecting our self-esteem, our self-image, and our life. The third thing that healthy parents do with their children is they encourage individuality. They encourage the child to have passions. They encourage the child to, if they have certain talents, they encourage those things. And so the child excels and they get better and they feel pride and they feel good about themselves. A narcissistic parent, now this depends, it depends on the child, right? Because narcissistic parents treat their children differently. One is allowed to have talents and passions as long as the narcissist can somehow take credit for it, and the other can't. So if you're the scapegoat, how this will show up, narcissistic parents will view your talents and your individuality as a threat. And so they will shame you to the point that how this shows up in your life as an adult is that if you have an amazing talent, let's say you can play piano by ear and you never took a lesson in your life. If you were shamed for that and you had a narcissistic parent, you will struggle to play the piano. The thought of playing the piano will bring about a tremendous amount of anxiety, because they teach you that your own passions and talents are dangerous and bad because something bad will happen. And that's what happened in childhood. Every time you engaged in it, something bad happened. You were emotionally rejected. And that's extremely painful for a child. That's like, feels like death, because you're dependent on your caregivers. And if they're rejecting you, there's a survival on the line. It's like, who's going to take care of me? And so now your nervous system associates those passions and talents with something bad, and you will struggle to be able to do them. If you were the golden child, you were allowed to have your talents encouraged. Sometimes the golden child is encouraged as if they have talents when they don't. That's something that happens. But if you did have a talent, then you were allowed to have it, but the narcissist somehow takes the credit for it. So it's not your hard work or your talent. It's the parent that gave birth to you that enables you to have that. So there's issues with that as well. I tend to focus more on the scapegoat, but it is true. Even though the golden child does have the fact that the parent kind of encourages that, there's always a catch to it, just to kind of mention that. So those things that happen to us in childhood, I mentioned how they show up in our adult life. They affect us. They create the subconscious programs that enable us to do things or that don't enable us to do things. And they steal our happiness if they're old programs that were put in place by somebody that's not healthy, somebody that's toxic. And so the way we work through that, the way we heal, is we have to change those programs. So if you are a child of a narcissistic parent, leaving is wonderful. Growing up and trying to start your own life apart from a family member that's that controlling and that is not allowing you to excel as your own authentic person, that's good. That's going to stop what they're doing. But remember that that doesn't heal what they did. And the subconscious programs that are instilled in us as children, they're still running the show. It's not what we're learning now. It's the subconscious programs that are really running the show. And if we haven't upgraded and updated them, then the same beliefs that were instilled in childhood are going to keep on running our life when we're adults. And so a lot of healing is about looking at what the circumstances, what your upbringing caused you to believe about yourself, and then whatever negative and limiting belief you had, learning how to work through the subconscious programs to upgrade them. And that takes time. It's not something you can learn in a video and be like, oh, I learned this 1, 2, 3. Tomorrow I have new updated beliefs. It's not as easy as what with our phone. We hit a button and boom, our phone is updated. We have to do the work. And that involves time, patience, little things every day, because our subconscious is a habit mind. You can move to the other side of the world of a narcissist. And if you have the beliefs still in you that they put in you in childhood, you will still feel like you are suffering from narcissistic abuse. It's not until we have different beliefs inside of us that we feel like that door is closed and we are now living our lives. So if you're struggling with upgrading your beliefs, your subconscious beliefs, make sure you check out Thrivers School of Transformation, because we meet every week and there's something about the consistency of being able to do the inner work in a live group, not just a video course, but in a live setting with other thrivers from all around the world. So make sure you check us out.